The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Drivers, start your engines. Pull those belts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. Nascar, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here is your host, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
John's got CRN Live locked down. Matt's with me. He'll join me here in just a moment. I am Steve West. Thank you very much for joining us, and we're going to get you covered this week, whether on the radio or on YouTube. We got legal drama to talk about. Good grief. More on-track drama in the Cup Series between a couple of drivers. Got a new funny car driver set to make their debut. We'll talk about that whole situation. You might be familiar with it because we talked about that just a couple of weeks ago when it comes to this particular driver getting their top fuel license, too. We got more rumors about a new maker coming into NASCAR and more than one person debunking it. Got a track getting a new name. And why was this a good news, bad news week for AJ Foyt Racing? We got all that and a whole lot more on tap as we get into CRN next.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. To more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Indeed we are. I feel like I got caught off guard on that one. That's the way it goes. Good morning to you. I'm Steve West. That's Matt Nicholson. Producer John Myers is with us as well on CRN Live on YouTube. We appreciate everybody joining us, no matter how it is that you're joining us this morning. Let's get into it. Recap from last week. Kind of interesting to note how one driver pretty much all but called a shot. Justin Allgaier said before the race at Nashville Superspeedway last Saturday he needed another win. He needed another guitar trophy so that he was going to have one for each of his daughters. And a few hours later, after dominating the race, leading 101 of the race's 188 laps, he walked away with, indeed, that second guitar trophy. And I got to admit, there are some cool trophies around there. They all talk about the grandfather clock, and we know about the one over here at Talladega, which is heavy, which we found
Extremely.
out in spades.
That we did.
But a guitar trophy is a pretty cool trophy. Got to admit, that is a pretty cool trophy. Allgaier fended off Connor Zilisch for the win. Sam Mayer then in third, followed by his teammate Sheldon Creed. Ross Chastain in there as well. You and I were talking about it after the fact. That top five is nothing but Junior Motorsports and Haas factory team. Mm-hmm. That's a nice run for them. Mm-hmm. Eric Almirola, Austin Hill, Jesse Love, Daniel Dye, Carson Kvapil fill out the top 10. Allgaier's win moves him into a tie with Austin Hill at 3 wins on top of the Xfinity Series. Nobody's got 2 wins at this point in time anymore. You got single-time winners that are locked into the playoffs this time. They include Jesse Love, Connor Zilisch, Brandon Jones, and Sammy Smith. In on points, Sam Mayer, followed by that teammate Sheldon Creed. Is this a matter of when they're going to win, not if, or they're just missing something?
I say it's a matter of when.
Okay. I mean, we've said this before. It doesn't matter whether last year, whether it was Stewart Haas Racing, or this year, it doesn't seem to have missed a beat. The strength of that team is the Xfinity program.
Yeah, they're definitely strong. It's just a matter of, like you said, when, not if, because they will catch a break.
Gotcha. Carson Kvapil's in there as well. The Burton Cousins, Jeb, and then Harrison. Brian Sieg is kind of splitting them in between them. Nick Sanchez on the outside looking in, but he's only missed out by 5 points, so still a lot of things can be switched around and moved around. Early, and I mean early, Sunday morning, U.S. time, second race of the Shanghai E-Prix doubleheader weekend. It was not pretty. Rain was falling throughout the race, and the man who handled it best was Nick Cassidy. Cassidy claimed the pole, led every lap, and the win in his Jaguar entry. Pascal Wehrlein started third. He claimed second in the end, trading spots with Antonio Felix da Costa. JQ's fourth, Jean-Eric Verne fifth, and the rest of your top 10, Nico Muller, Stoffel Van Dorn. We'll be getting back to him in a minute. Robin Frines, Lucas DeGrassi, and the rookie, Taylor Bernard, continues to impress. He came home 10th despite being in the rain. Oliver Rowland continues as your points leader. He's got 171. Pascal Wehrlein now got 103. 88 for Antonio Felix da Costa. Taylor Bernard with the 1 point for finishing in 10th, jumped by a couple of guys. Remember, last time we talked about him last week, he was sitting in second place. He's got 86. Jean-Eric Verne holds 74. Tag Heuer Porsche's retaking the team standings lead from Nissan. They now sit at a 190 to 145 gap, 113 to McLaren. Mahindra's at 103. Then you drop below that. Maserati's at 89, 88 for Andretti. Jaguar's up to 83 with the win. Envision's got 62, Cooper Kuro 55, and Lola Yamaha still sitting in the basement, but starting to score points. Not many, but a couple of points here and there on a pretty regular basis. They're up to 30.
Yep.
Manufacturer standings, Nissan on top, 285, Porsche with 259, 213 for Stellantis. That's a name we're going to be talking about again here soon. Jaguar with 184, 129 for Mahindra, Lola holding at 41. Then you go to Spain. This is where Formula One got rolling next. The McLaren twins, led by Oscar Piastri, locked out the front row, and, well, they sailed off away from the field when the race got underway. And as the laps wound down, it was looking like George Russell might have a podium finish in its sights, but then Max Verstappen came along. Initial contact between the two had Verstappen needing to take an escape road to avoid going through the grass, and then they got into each other again. The second one, by the way, resulted in Charles Leclerc getting by. He claimed third in the last podium position. And a post-race penalty for Verstappen for causing a collision dropped him down. Piastri wins, Lando Norris second, Leclerc and Russell third and fourth. It was supposed to be Max Verstappen in fifth, but that post-race penalty dropped him. Nico Hülkenberg ended up being the beneficiary of Verstappen losing his mind. He gets a top 5 for Sauber. Let me repeat that real quick. A top 5 for Sauber.
Mm-hmm.
He legitimately, on the track, passed the Ferrari of Lewis Hamilton.
Cleanly.
Huh. We'll see whether that's a sign of things to come or a one-off. Rest of your top 10. 6, Lewis Hamilton, then Isaac Hadjar, Pierre Gasly, Fernando Alonso, and there's Max Verstappen. After his time penalty, he got 10th place. Piastri's your points leader, 186, 176 for Lando Norris. Max Verstappen now at 137. George Russell's at 111. Charles Leclerc fighting to get over into the triple digits. He's got 94. Lewis Hamilton not doing himself any favors. He's got 71. There's your rookie, Kimi Antonelli with 48, 42 for Alex Albon. The rookie, Isaac Hadjar, is now up to 21, and Esteban Ocon gripping on as tight as he can to a top 10 position with 20 points. McLaren continues to build on their already commanding points lead. They're now up to a 362 to 165 lead in the manufacturer's standings over Ferrari. That's first and second.
Yeah. That's a walk-off.
Let's just call that over. The battle from there, still on. 165 for Ferrari, Mercedes 159, 144 for Red Bull. But again, when you only have one driver, kind of tough. Williams has got 54. Racing Bull's jumped up to 28. Haas F1's got 26. Sauber, with a top 5 finish by the aforementioned Nico Hülkenberg, now has double-digit points. 16. In a tie with Aston Martin, but holding the tiebreaker because they have a better finish. Who would have thought that? Sauber's got a better finish in a single race than Aston Martin? I would not have called that on my bingo card.
No, not at all.
And Alpine now is your cellar dweller with 11. It's the last time we saw all 10 teams in Formula One get into double digits.
It's been a while.
I was trying to think if since we've covered Formula One on this show, has that happened?
It's been a while for sure.
I'd have to go back and look.
I can't remember.
I'd have to go back and look. I might try and figure that out and maybe give you a report on that, maybe during Cross Flags or next week on the big show. IndyCar rolled into Detroit then on Sunday. Many wondered if Alex Palou was just going to continue his dominant 2025 beginning. Spoiler alert, no. Palou made contact with Callum Ilott, ended both of their days before they made it 3/4 of the way through the race. Back out front, it was Kyle Kirkwood. He started third, got around both pole sitter Colton Herta and a hard-charging Santino Ferrucci, and he claimed the win. Kirkwood, Ferrucci, Herta making up the podium. Nice, interesting trio there. Will Power in 4th, Kiffin Simpson in 5th. Rest of your top 10, Marcus Armstrong, Pato Award, Christian Lundgaard, Joseph Newgarden, and Alexander Rossi. This really didn't hurt Palou. He's still got the big lead in the title run. He's got a 311 to 221 point gap over Pato Award, who's in 2nd. Kyle Kirkwood's up to 3rd with 209. Christian Lundgaard, 205. Tied at 175, Will Power, Felix Rosenquist. Is this over, or is this the opening that everybody else was looking for? And now we know that Mr. Palou is human. I know. It's a tough thing, huh? Considering what he's done here over the last couple of years, it's hard to bet against him.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to bet against him, but there's about that much light glimmering at the end of the tunnel.
Here's the question.
About that much.
Is that an oncoming train? Or is that just an electric light on the wall and the light bulb is ready to burn out?
I'm not going to say it's a light bulb. I'm not going to say it's a train. I'm going to say it's one of the maintenance cars on the rail. Let's call it that.
And its name has Palou written right on it.
Yeah.
Honda still leads Chevrolet in the manufacturer standings. That's a 635 to 500 point gap. Rookie standings, Robert Schwartzman, 79 points, 76 for Lewis Foster. Jacob Abel has 40. That takes us up to New Hampshire for the New England NHRA Nationals. Top Fuel, Tony Stewart making his 5th finals appearance in a row. He was 2 for 2 going in. This time he takes on Brittany Force. Smoke has the better reaction time, and then Force powers by midway down the track. She gets the win. This is a rather eye-popping stat. She ran a 3.964 ET at 340.39 miles per hour. The win marks her first win of 2025, 18th event win of her career. 340. That was not her first, by the way, 340 mile per hour run of the weekend. She ran one in qualifying too.
Yeah, they were on one last weekend.
You know it. Spencer Hyde, J.R. Todd made it to the Funny Car Finals. Neither spectacular in their reaction times, but Hyde did get the early lead. But just like in Top Fuel, it was gone. This time by the 60-foot mark. Just past the Christmas tree, Todd scooted out and got the win. 3.888 ET, 332.43 miles per hour. This win marks Todd's 22nd career Mission Foods Drag Racing Series event win, 13th coming in Funny Car. And then Pro Stock Car was there. Pro Stock Motorcycle had this event off, but Pro Stock Car ran. The finals came down to a duel between the multiple-time champion Erica Enders and then Greg Anderson, who was a multiple-time winner. Enders quicker off the light, but she also couldn't seem to claim the win. Anderson's passed her by the 60-foot mark. Enders suffers a severe tire shake, has to shut her car down. Anderson guns his ride, meantime, to a 6.489 ET at 212.19 miles per hour. This is his third win of 2025. I said he has multiple wins to his name. This marks win number 109. Not a bad career.
Nope.
So your updated standings in the NHRA. Top Fuel, Tony Stewart's up, now 71 on Sean Langdon. Antron Brown's 89 back. 115 back is Doug Kalitta, and Justin Ashley sits 178 down. I know this is early, but I'm going to ask this. In the pantheon of just great drivers, forget series, just think of the great drivers of all time. Tony Stewart's already got 3 Cup championships and an IndyCar title. Plus, he is the first ever Triple Crown winner in USAC midgets. You think about that. He was the last champion of the IROC series as Ray Evernham continues to try and build it up. He was the first of only 3 SRX champions. Should he, I'm not saying he will, but should he hoist the NHRA Top Fuel title this year? And if he doesn't, I don't think that it besmirches his career by any stretch. But to add that title, where does that put him in the pantheon of great drivers, period? Again, doesn't matter what series it is.
That, personally, in my opinion, that puts him firmly. Granted, there's no specific position, in my opinion, but it firmly puts him, I would say, worldwide, top 3.
That's hard to argue. I mean, if you're claiming that many titles over the course of your career, and you think about the vast difference in a lot of those cars, that's hard to argue. And again, I'm a fan, I know that, but I'm trying to take the hat off. I'm just curious as to how that puts him into it. As it is right now, the fact that he's even leading it is eye-popping. Austin Prock leads Jack Beckman in the Funny Car points by 38. Those two were teammates. Next up is Paul Lee. He's 78 back. Matt Hagan, 95 out. And Ron Capps trails by 171. And then you get the pretty big gap here in Pro Stock Car. Greg Anderson leads that by 50 over Dallas Glenn. And then you got to drop all the way to 230 down. That's Matt Hartford. 301 back is Corey Reed. And Eric Latino is 5th. He's 364 points behind the division leader. I guess they're pretty happy that they're going to get a chance to reset these points once we get to the chase for the championship. Final race of the weekend was an evening into night race that used to be pretty much the sole property of Charlotte Motor Speedway and the Coca-Cola 600. Now Nashville gets into it. 2023 champ looked like he was going to be a hard luck case all year long, but Ryan Blaney coming so close to wins only to have some form of bad luck this year keeping it from happening, finally all went away. But yeah, when Ryan Blaney was able to grab the lead and seemingly had the car to keep it, the driver himself wasn't going to count on it happening until it was over. And I have to admit, I was kind of wondering, is that bad luck going to catch up to him too?
Right.
It was kind of like watching Dale Earnhardt year after year after year get so close to winning a Daytona 500 and have a flat tire on the last lap, or whatever it was that would happen, just somebody getting a good draft and a pass. It's like, okay, what's going to keep him from winning this year? And then he finally does. In the end, Blaney led 139 to 300 laps. Wasn't really terribly challenged in the final run, which was a long 103-lap green flag run by Carson Hocevar. Yeah, we'll get back to that. That resulted in a second-place finish for the youngster, just shy of his first win. Blaney Hocevar trailed by Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, William Byron, Bubba Wallace, Eric Jones, Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, and Christopher Bell making up the top 10. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has something to say about that. We'll talk about it momentarily. We didn't cross flags, too. We'll have a bit of a follow-up. All right, now we got 9 winners out of 16 playoff spots for the Cup Series. 9 winners means 9 slots spoken for, 7 left. All right, Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell lead the way with 3 wins. You got 2 wins for Denny Hamlin. Your single-time winners now updated include William Byron, Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, Ross Chastain, Austin Cindric, and Josh Berry. In on points, Chase Elliott leads the way there. Tyler Reddick follows, followed by his teammate Bubba Wallace. Then it's Chase Briscoe, Alex Bowman, and Chris Buescher. And then Kyle Busch got in. Kyle Busch, very slim 2-point lead over Ryan Preece for that final spot. So nothing guaranteed there. Speaking of which, Carson Hocevar with his great run, he's now only 4 out of a playoff spot. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and A.J. Allmendinger also real close, 6 points and 7 points out respectively. So a lot of movement still could happen there. Plus, we've got an interesting stretch of races here that we're going to be talking about. In fact, we'll give you the schedule here because it's actually kind of already begun. What do we mean by that? Well, one of those series that we'll be racing later on today has already qualified. So we'll give you the lineup and when they're going to race. And, of course, the full weekend schedule as well and who's off. And it's a rather surprising number of series that we cover on a regular basis that is off. Then we got to get into the news. That's next.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. 2 tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
All right, this weekend's racing action actually beginning up in the Irish Hills of Michigan. Pretty area up there. I haven't been there personally, but I've seen it on, I've seen it on camera. It's very pretty. Craftsman Truck Series, Michigan International Speedway, DQS Solutions and Staffing 250, powered by Precision Vehicle Logistics. How many times is Jamie Little going to say that mouthful?
None.
I'm going to go once. She'll give it the official name at the beginning of the race, and then that's it.
Listening to qualifying this morning, she's already on one.
Speaking of qualifying, what happened?
You've got an interesting front row with Luke Fenhouse taking his first career pole, and then Carson Hocevar outside pole.
Yeah.
And
by the way, nice run for Luke.
Yeah.
It
nice.
surprised me because I was listening yesterday. Sirius XM was talking about how they were already out there because they did a practice.
Yeah.
When was the last time the trucks were at Michigan?
2020.
So it's been a while. Nobody's got notes for all intents and purposes.
Yep.
So they gave them, I think, a 50-minute practice yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And when I heard Fenhouse's name at or near the top of the speed charts during practice, I went, really?
Thorsport unloaded pretty well with all 4 of their trucks in the top 10.
So, yeah, okay. So Fenhouse, Hocevar sitting on the front row, leading the field to green, and green flag will drop just after noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central Time. The race will be on the Fox network. They're not putting on a cable. They're putting it on the main network. It'll also be on the NASCAR Racing Network if you're listening on the radio. Again, this is race time. Pre-race time is different because TV and radio tend to do it differently. So I try not to get involved in that. I just deal with green flag time or race coverage time. NHRA back in action this weekend. Super Grip NHRA Thunder Valley Nationals at Bristol Dragway. You noted something interesting about the top fuel field this weekend.
Yeah, there's only 14 cars.
What the heck?
So in the top half of the bracket, whoever wins the 114 match has an automatic pass to the semis.
Jeez.
Automatic.
Finals will get underway tomorrow, noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central Time. Fox Sports 1 is going to pick up the coverage starting at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time. And then, real quick, let's go back to that Tony Stewart thing that we were talking about, because I was kind of giving just his resume of championships, asking where he is in the Grand Pantheon. Suddenly, you found a graphic that detailed what all he has done of note.
I recalled seeing this on the Tony Stewart NHRA team social media page, and I had to go back and find it. But they got a graphic of cars after he won his first top fuel race, a graphic of championships that he's obtained, and cars that he's won in overall. The cars that he's won in overall: a 3/4 midget, an IMCA dirt modified, a small block dirt modified, a big block dirt modified, a UMP dirt car modified, super modified asphalt, pavement late model, dirt late model, 410 non-wing sprint, 360 wing sprint, 410 wing sprint, NHRA top alcohol dragster, NHRA top fuel dragster, SRX, IROC, Silver Crown car, midget, Indycar, ARCA, Trucks, Xfinity, Cup. Championships he's obtained: NHRA North Central Division champion, the WKA World Karting Association champion, IROC champion, SRX champion, 4-time USAC champion, IndyCar champion, an owner's championship in Cup, and a 3-time driving title in Cup.
Plus, he has an owner's title in Funny Car because Matt Hagan won it.
Yep.
So it's actually a fairly incomplete list if you want to include his owner's titles.
Yeah. Xfinity owner's title, too.
Yeah. Unreal. Finally, Cup Series will wrap up. Short schedule here. Firekeepers Casino 400 at Michigan International Speedway. It'll be on Prime and MRN Radio, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central Time. I was listening this morning on the way into a replay, Dave Moody on Sirius XM Satellite Radio, and he addressed the idea that they might alter the start time. Now, you got to remember, and it doesn't matter whether it's a streaming partner or a broadcast TV partner, NASCAR has to, like every other sport, give TV 24 hours notice before they can change a time or a day so that the TV partner has the ability to adjust. according to everything that NASCAR has said, no adjustment's going to be made to the schedule, despite the fact that there's some rain in the area. If they get delayed, that is a massive problem, because remember where they're going next weekend. They got to go from Michigan to Mexico City. And everything that I'm hearing right now is that basically the trucks that are going to leave Michigan whenever the race is done, tonight or, God forbid, tomorrow, are supposed to meet up with the cars that are prepped for Mexico City somewhere in Texas and then head into Mexico.
That it is good, yeah, because of the logistics nightmare that they're going to face. Let's just say it.
Yeah.
With the international border crossings, customs, etc., because of let's just say 40 cup haulers to be inspected and checked. And let's just say 38 to 40 Xfinity haulers.
Yeah. Right now it's looking like 39.
Series.
The series trucks for both Xfinity, Cup, and NASCAR itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be
production trucks. That's I would suspect they would probably meet somewhere.
Houston?
I'm going to say they may meet somewhere. I would not be surprised if it's Corpus Christi.
Okay.
Or Brownsville, somewhere in there.
Somewhere in that area.
Or possibly come down and they meet somewhere in Dallas.
Could be. Some major thoroughfare.
Yeah.
Xfinity Series is off, as is Formula E, Formula One, and IndyCar. All right. Let's deal with this first. Legal drama.
I'll just say this disclaimer. I wish this would go away.
It does. It needs to go away. I agree.
I mean, this is pathetic.
Here's your latest in the legal battle between NASCAR on one side, 2311, and Front Row Motorsports on the other. Took a little bit of a turn on Thursday. Had an appeals court panel rule that if this is upheld in the long run, it would make both 2311 and Front Row Motorsports, 6 cars in all, open teams. Strip all of their charters with them. Of course, we all know by now that the whole antitrust lawsuit, so we're not going to go back into that. The initial judge in the case ruled in favor of the teams that allowed them to compete this year as though they had signed the charter agreement, even though they chose not to and instead sued NASCAR on the antitrust monopoly grounds, right? Well, the panel in the appeal on this, in their written explanation for the ruling, said, quote, "In short, because we have found no support for the proposition that a business entity or person violates the antitrust laws by requiring a prospective participant to give a release for past conduct as a condition for doing business, we cannot conclude that the plaintiffs made it clear showing that they were likely to succeed on the merits of that theory. And without satisfaction of the likelihood of that success element, the plaintiffs are not entitled to a preliminary injunction." Oops. Now, the teams have asserted that they needed the injunction, allowing them to compete as though they had the charters first, because the new charter agreement precludes a lawsuit against NASCAR for any reason. And also that, specifically in the case of Tyler Reddick in 2311 Racing, that team would be harmed because Reddick has a clause in his contract states that he can become a free agent effective immediately, for all intents and purposes, if he is not in a chartered entry. Now, a lot of people are making a big deal out of that. Here's my problem with that. I mean, I get it, but where's he going to go? There's no chartered seat available.
It's not so much as that. It's...
I mean, it's not like he's going to... Well, let's just say that this is upheld, okay? Let's just say this is upheld. There's no place for Tyler to go if he decides that once the calendar turns to July and the charter proverbially is ripped away, he's got no place to go. That's a chartered seat.
I don't see. I personally, I see where you're going with this, and I see what you're talking about. But personally, I don't see something like this happening mid-season.
I know. I don't either.
And as you're 4 months into a season, why are you just going to because of mom and dad are bickering back and forth at each other? There's one of them didn't take the trash out like they needed to, or didn't clean whatever analogy you want to use to it.
Right.
Doesn't mean that the kid in the house is just going to say, "Deuces, I'll see you because y'all don't know how to shut up.
Right.
That ain't going to happen.
No.
I don't see it happening.
I don't either. But again, I was just kind of taking it to the nth degree here because that's what everyone is seemingly concentrating on. Settle down. Just cool off a little bit. You'll be all right. And here's the other side of this. This isn't the Supreme Court that made this ruling. This is the first appellate court. Okay? What that means is we have plenty more room for appeals. All the way up to the Supreme Court should that 9-person panel decide that they want to take it on. Which I'm not really certain that they would.
Yeah, there's a few more important things going on in the United States other than that.
But that being said, again, there will likely be an appeal from the 2311 in Front Row Motorsports camp. NASCAR right now cannot act as though the 6 cars that the 2 teams field are not chartered. They can't do that until the week after the deadline to appeal. The deadline to appeal is 2 weeks from Thursday's ruling. So that means they get through this weekend at Michigan, through next weekend at Mexico City, before they have to make sure they got their paperwork in a row. And then you file the paperwork.
Pretty sure.
And again, expect these teams to take all the time that they possibly can to file the appeal.
I'm pretty sure Jeffrey Kessler's already got it ready.
And if you file that appeal, then the injunction immediately from the initial ruling remains in effect. So that means they continue to run as though they are chartered until the next appeal can be heard. And let's face it, the way that the court system is, God only knows when that's going to happen.
True.
And this case isn't slated to actually go to court until after the season is over. I want to say it was first week in December is what we saw?
I think so.
Seems right. I want to say somewhere on or around December 6th. Almost appropriate that would be just before Pearl Harbor Day.
Yeah, buddy.
I'm with you, though. I mean, at this point in time, I'm kind of tired of this. I don't care which side of this you're on. You can be on 2311 in Front Row Motorsports side. You can be on NASCAR side. I'm not taking sides in this. At this point in time, I would just be happy for this thing to be over.
Just y'all pick a room, go to it, sit down, talk it out like humans, come to an agreement, let it go.
Yeah.
Because Jordan's probably already paid Jeffrey Kessler for everything.
Oh, I'm sure he has.
So, let it go.
And here's the thing. If, let's just say that the charters do get ripped away from the teams, I'm not going to feel that bad for Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin. Those two can afford to run for the rest of the year. I'm going to feel kind of bad for Front Row Motorsports and Bob Jenkins because they've been a shoestring budget kind of operation for a long time. They're a little better off now than what they have been, but it's not like they got a whole lot of comfort here.
They can run.
They can.
I think they're okay.
I agree, but at the same point in time, things are going to get a little tighter over there. Certainly than at 2311.
Yeah.
So,
but I think overall they'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll just keep an eye on it. God, I hope this thing ends soon. Go talk it out, guys. I don't care if you have to go into a boxing ring and figure it out that way. Figure it out. It's getting real old, people.
It is.
We talked about Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Carson Hocevar's run-in. We'll kind of go back over it. We did it on Crossed Flags. In case you haven't seen it, it's available now on CRN Live on YouTube. But we'll go back into it just a little bit and give you the result.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back. So Michigan Cup Series qualifying now?
No, they're in practice. Group
okay.
one's practicing right now.
So you've noticed something there, and I'm with you on this. What's going on with the speeds up there?
Right now, well, the top two right now in Group 1 are, by technicality, they are a substantial amount quicker than the third position and backwards. Alex Bowman and Austin Dillon.
Hello.
Yes, I said Austin Dillon are both at 194.98.
Are they working together?
Nope. Individual.
Ooh.
There is no way. And picture me. I'm saying this in my normal voice, but I'm channeling my inner Buford Justice. There is no Jackie Gleason. There is no way.
I know exactly the line.
These cars should be running 14 miles an hour faster at a track that is 0.6 of a mile smaller
than Talladega.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No way. I'm sorry, but no way.
They did that repave in what, 2010, 2011, 2012, somewhere in that area?
09, I think.
Was it 09? It's held up remarkably well.
Oh, yeah.
And they fly around that track.
Just like I've got the stream on watching this a lot of times right now, watching everything on Amazon Prime. They got telemetry on Keselowski's car. He just carried 202 into the corner and got no less than 190 on corner exit.
And that's by himself. That's
by
not
himself.
with drafting help at all.
Nothing.
Wow. Get ready. Should be interesting tomorrow. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. not happy with Carson Hocevar specifically because of a crash on lap 106 of the race last weekend in Nashville. They were going into turn 3. Hocevar got into Stenhouse, caused the Hayek Motorsports driver to get sideways, hit the outside retaining wall, caused damage severe enough, and it ended his night. Stenhouse said afterward, quote, "Not real thrilled with that exit, especially in stage 2 there. He tried to dive bomb me 2 laps before that from about 10 or 12 car lengths back, and then he finally was close enough that time to just wipe us out." Stenhouse believes, in all honesty, that Hocevar was targeting him to hit him? I don't think so.
No.
Hocevar was asked about it after the race, said this, quote, "I kind of got a run and just felt like I was kind of there. Felt like it was there enough to get a call from Stenhouse's spotter inside and have him just run the middle. He probably could have cleared me. But so that's just what I expected him to do, but he didn't. And by the time I checked up, I'd almost spun out too. By that.
Kids, stop the fighting. Drive your cars. Run your race. Quit bickering.
Yeah.
There's nothing. I said this the other day. I'm going to say it again. My mentor coming up through when I was learning everything and coming up through the ranks always told me, when you're racing around another car, your hind end, that wasn't what he said, but that's what I'm saying. That's your hind end will tell you automatically. 9 times out of 10, it's going to tell you automatically if contact is deliberate or unintentional.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to tell you real quick.
All right, so
that's heat of the moment.
Yeah. So let's take this first comment here, and I'm not going to go really in depth into this, but Stenhouse was approached after the race was over and after Hocevar said what he said. And Stenhouse replied to it, said, "I think it definitely was over-aggressive. I think that's Carson. Maybe you should have just hung a right, let him go. I'm not sure. You would have gotten him inside, blah, blah, blah." He goes way off into details, but he says he feels like it was over-aggressive. Stenhouse is a young driver. He's only in his second year. That's kind of what he does. That's kind of what young kids do as a general rule. They see an opening, they go for it. Am I wrong?
No, I mean, if that's what you're supposed to do, if there's an opening there, you're not supposed to go, "Oh, let's just, Let's just wait and see. No. I always got told. Trying to think of a way to condense it down here because it's really long how I got told this. In a nutshell, your job is to catch them sleeping. Whether it's corner exit, corner entry, center corner, or on the straightaway.
Mm-hmm.
Your job is to catch them sleeping. He was trying to catch Stenhouse sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
But when he thought he had Stenhouse sleeping, Stenhouse was really just dozing off and then he woke up.
Yeah.
That's really how that was.
This is another way of putting this. And for example, you get into a level of, we'll just use Talladega short track because you're very familiar with it and it's very close to where we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
An opening could be huge. Okay. As you advance up through the ranks, what you consider an opening becomes a much smaller window. And by the time you get to the Cup Series, that window is only about inch or two wide, it seems like.
You're basically looking out of a patio French door window. And then that window gets as small as a bathroom lavatory window on an airplane.
To equate it to another sport, wide open in high school football could mean that your wide receiver has nobody within 20 yards in any direction of him. When you get to college, that wide open turns into 15 yards or 10 yards unless the cornerback fell down.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get it to the UFL, and suddenly that 10-yard window becomes a 5-yard window.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to the NFL, and wide open is a 1-yard window.
Mm-hmm.
Same situation here.
Mm-hmm.
Carson Hocevar saw an opening. Was he over-aggressive? He saw an opening. He went for it. Stenhouse Jr. said he was going to seek out the young driver, talk it out. Hocevar said he welcomed that. Quote, if he wants to talk, I'll gladly talk, but I feel like it's just a product of this, unfortunately. Everybody tries to get there. There were a bunch of people who got shipped that either didn't wreck or didn't get wrecked. I found out that Thursday, the two of them were able to get together. I don't know whether by text, by phone, whether they met face-to-face. They talked it out. They're good. So if you're expecting somebody to use their car as a battering ram this weekend, no. It's not going to happen that way. This weekend also begins the seeding for the in-season challenge for the Cup Series. Talked about this a little bit, too, on Cross Flags. 5-race slate's going to net the winner a $1 million bonus. 32 drivers will set up the seeding, again, starting this weekend, finishing in Atlanta, where the top 32, based upon their average finish over those 3 races, is going to get their seed. I actually found out it's not average finish. It's best finish of the next 3 races, and if there's a tiebreaker, it's the next best finish of the other 2 races, and then if there's still a tie, it's based upon where you are in the season standings.
Yeah, and I think there's one in particular that they're going to be regretting that he's not in the field.
Spoiler alert.
Yep.
All right, so you're going to have a field of 32.
Mm-hmm.
Now, remember, we got 36 chartered cars, at least for now. So 4 got cut. We'll get back to them. You go from 32 down to 16 after the Chicago race. By the way, this does line up with the exact 5-race slate of the TBS TNT crew. 32 to 16 after Chicago, then to 8 after Sonoma, down to 4 after Dover, and finally the remaining 2 will fight out for the $1 million in the win at the Brickyard 400. They don't have to win the race. They just have to beat the other driver in this in-season challenge. The driver all know what this means. You got to be consistent.
True.
But will it change how they race? Chris Buescher said no, quote, that is real money, but I don't want to change how we go to the racetrack. We need to figure out how to win races. A lot more on that at the end of the line than at the end of the year. Defending champion Joey Logano added this is a little bit longer thing. This is a race within the race, so you're not willing to give up a lot to do that, right? It's kind of like the home run derby. You're not trying to change. You'd like to win the home run derby in Major League Baseball, but you're not going to change the way that you've been swinging all year long just to win a home run derby and screw up your second half.
Right.
Denny Hamlin said that he liked the idea of the in-season challenge until he saw the slate of the races. It led him to say, quote, truthfully, you're going to get pretty lucky or have to have a good draw, that things just kind of work out. Wish it was more conventional ovals, but that's the way the schedule works out, and it's unfortunately probably not my prime part of the season. And 2012 Cup champion Brad Keselowski added this, quote, it is good for the sport, good for our fans, and it is competition. If there's competition, we want to win it. But that said, I think our heads are down to 1 week at a time, in some ways 1 day at a time, and it's hard to look further ahead than that. You and I talked about this, and I am of the definitive opinion that this is nice one for the driver who wins $1 million. Don't get me wrong, but it is a gimmick very akin to the in-season playoffs that the NBA is doing at the early part of their season the last couple of years, because the NBA knows something that, well, everybody on the planet knows, whether or not you're an NBA fan. Nobody's really paying attention to the National Basketball Association until the Christmas Day games and after.
True.
So all they're trying to do with that in-season playoff that happens very early in the year, November into December, I think, is they're trying to draw viewers before that. It's a gimmick.
I agree. I do agree.
Again, congratulations to the driver who walks away with $1 million. But yeah, you got to be looking at this in much bigger picture. And if I'm one of these 4 drivers that is not in this, oh man, do I want to play spoiler. And there's one that's got a really good chance of doing that.
A gigantic chance.
Here's the 4 drivers that will not be part of it, and this is based upon your points. You had to be in the top 32 in points to be part of this challenge. The drivers out of it already: Cody Ware, not really a surprise. Riley Herbst,
not really.
Not a big surprise there, because the rookie is still trying to get his feet wet. Cole Custer, a minor surprise, mainly because of the fact that we have seen some sparks of life out of that 41 car, but just not enough yet. This one's the big one. Shane Van Gisbergen. Now remember, we said the seating order is set over the next 3 races, and that is this weekend at Michigan, next weekend Mexico City, and then the weekend after that is Atlanta. That's a road course.
Poconos after Mexico.
Is it? Okay. Sorry. That's right.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
These
3 races, especially Mexico, set up very nicely for Shane Van Gisbergen.
He had a legitimate chance to be one of the top 3 seeds. Because of how the 5-race block set up and shaped up.
Chicago and then Sonoma? Huh. Good night.
All he had to do was all he would legitimately had to do was survive Atlanta.
Yeah.
You survive Atlanta, you outrun whoever your bracket is.
Yeah. Again, you don't need to win the race. You just need to beat the guy you're bracketed up against.
If you're speaking of it into, let's use it in the terms of NCAA regionals. But your rounds, each round, okay, you survive and you get out of the Atlanta region and you're advancing to the Chicago region. In a way, and if somebody wants to argue with me or dispute me, fight me. I don't care. Argue with the wall. He had a very much better than, I'm going to say better than 80%. Better than 80. Because that other 20% accounting to things that could happen, better than 80% odds of having an automatic pass all the way to the regional finals in Dover. Because Chicago and Sonoma, wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Clear wheelhouse. So, and when we back up and we look at it here, now, I'm looking at the ones that have qualified. Barring something something happening in Atlanta, and he gets past Atlanta. Let's word it that way.
All right.
Right now, I would be completely surprised and shocked if A.J. Allmendinger is not in the Final Four at Dover.
That was the name that I was picking right there. My thought immediately went to A.J. Allmendinger.
In the NCAA tournament terms, I would say Cinderella to have a chance to get to the regional final. Michael McDowell.
Yeah, he's sneaky good on road courses and street courses.
Michael McDowell.
He's sneaky good there. And it's not like his car is bad. I mean, we haven't heard as much of him this year as we did the last couple of years.
He's shown flashes of Spire.
Yeah.
But Carson Hocevar's carried that flag.
Yeah, he has. But don't count Michael McDowell out.
No.
This ought to be fun. It'll be an interesting little drama within the drama, but again, it's a gimmick. Connor Zilic set to get more time in the Cup Series. We'll tell you how all that came together. Hendrick Motorsports, like they needed a new sponsor, has one, but it's more than just putting their name and their product name on the car. We'll tell you what we mean by that coming up here in just a couple of minutes. And we've been keeping an eye on the TV ratings. We'll give you viewership numbers as well for Cup, IndyCar, and F1.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back. Four tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back in. Hour number 2, getting rolling here on this edition of CRN. Still talking Cup Series news here, where Connor Zilic has found out he's going to get a little bit more time in the Cup Series this year. It's got 2 more races that have been added to a slate in the number 87 entry for Trackhouse. Sponsorship, of course, coming from Red Bull. It's kind of still weird for me to see that Red Bull look back in the Cup Series. Zillage is going to be racing at Atlanta Motor Speedway June 28th, and then Watkins Glen International on August 10th. Watkins Glen makes sense. Atlanta? That's kind of a little bit out of left field. I was not predicting that, or would not have predicted that. If you told me Connor Zillage was going to get 2 more races, guess which tracks, I'd have looked at the schedule and I would have said, yeah, Watkins Glen I could see. Atlanta threw me for a loop a little bit.
A little, yeah. I think it's more just getting him experience when they are ready to bump him up.
Yeah,
it's just
which is
a matter
sounding like sooner rather than later.
I
don't know where they're going to put him, but yeah.
Again, I'm gonna say this. I've said this before. Trackhouse, do not pull the trigger too quick again.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
On
with
somebody actually driving your house car instead of driving at the time, back marker third-rate car.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's just not ready. We pulled him up too quick. He's held his ground, as in Zane Smith, held his ground admirably in a front row car.
Yeah.
So I think we need to pump the brakes on this Russian stuff. Russian, and let it freaking develop.
Yeah, let it happen
People.
naturally. Zillage does have 2 starts to his credit this year in the Cup Series. One was at Coda, an accident not of his own doing, relegated him to 37th. He also was in the Coca-Cola 600, where he claimed a respectable 23rd, all things being equal. Veteran crew chief Darian Grubb calling the shots for those 2 races. He will again be on top of the war wagon for the races at Atlanta and Watkins Glen. And I tend to think that you're right. They're trying to get him more comfortable on the oval tracks. We know he is a road course ace.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen that already. He was just like Shane Van Gisbergen, walked out there in his debut in the Xfinity Series. Not only did he claim the pole, but claimed the win at Watkins Glen. So we know what he can do on a road and a street course. That's not the issue. By putting him in at Watkins Glen, all you're doing is getting him more comfortable with a Cup car at a track where he knows he can do well.
That's going to be the confidence builder race.
Yeah. Atlanta is just like putting him in the Coca-Cola 600. Let's give you time behind the wheel at an oval track, and let's get you more and more familiar with it.
Right.
That's all that is.
Right.
Got ourselves another energy drink on the market. How many do we have now? They've paired with Hendrick Motorsports and specifically driver William Byron to promote it in a multi-year deal that actually has several facets to it. This isn't that deep. It's real deep. The drink is Form, PHORM, Form Energy. They feature 4 different flavors, all claiming natural flavoring, natural caffeine from green tea, electrolytes, and a blend of other ingredients that they say will support mental focus. We see a picture of it on CRN Live on YouTube if you want to check it out. Turns out Anheuser-Busch, the beer company, is the co-founder of this brand, along with Dana White. That name sounds familiar. Isn't that the UFC guy?
Yep. That's him.
The deal has Form Energy coming on as a primary sponsor for 2 races next year. The races have not specifically been announced yet. That, by the way, will go up from 2 to 4 in 2027 and beyond. In addition to being a primary sponsor for those races on the 24, they'll be an associate sponsor for him the rest of the year and for 2 of the other 300 cars, the 5 and the 48. Interesting how the 9 car is not included in that. You can also expect the drink to have a prime part of the Hendrick Motorsports Athletic Center and corporate training facility. They broke ground for that in April. It's slated to be ready in time for the 2026 season. Form Energy will likely have signage on the outside of the building and, of course, their product featured on the inside. You and I have been on the grounds at Hendrick Motorsports, and you can go, too, by the way, if you happen to be in Concord, North Carolina, not too far away from the track. Hendrick Motorsports is right there.
It is.
And it is a vast campus with a whole lot of buildings.
Quite a few.
So, yeah, I'm not really surprised that they decided to build a new athletic training facility and conference center.
Yeah, it's a sight. Let's say that.
It is.
It's It's as large as, some not bigger than. That's why I say it's as large as some Conference USA college campuses.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I would agree with
It's
that.
as large as some American Athletic Conference campuses too.
That's true.
UAB.
Yeah. Let's see here. On to some lighter news. 2025 edition of the Kyle Petty Charity Ride came to an end on May the 9th. Since then, they've been tallying it up. They added it all up. This week, they announced they've raised another $1.4 million for the Victory Junction Gang Camp. Former Cup Series driver turned TV analyst Kyle Petty led some 125 motorcycles on a week-long ride up in the upper Midwest, basically from Michigan down to, I think it was Virginia, to help raise awareness for the camp. Longtime fans of this, we've been keeping up on this. They've raised, over the course of their time, almost $30 million just out of the ride alone, or rides alone. Really, really cool thing. Plus, the camp is a really cool thing.
God. I'm not laughing at that. It's just a picture I seen just flash on social media of who is at Michigan today.
Who is it, Michigan?
Ladies and gentlemen, the mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, is on the grounds at Michigan International.
I wonder what he's got going on there.
He's with the Real American Beer brand of Hulk Hogan's that is on the 47 car.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Gotcha. All right. If you're a longtime fan of NASCAR, you likely remember back when Charlotte Motor Speedway had a title sponsor and it became Lowe's Motor Speedway. Of course, that coincided with Jimmy Johnson's seeming domination of that track. It was fitting because he was sponsored by Lowe's as well. But that sponsorship went away some years ago, and since then, the only other one that we really had seen was Auto Club Speedway. You know, that track that NASCAR's demolished halfway and has yet to figure out what they're going to do the rest of the way with, out in Fontana, California. Well, now we got another SMI track that has sold their naming rights. This is going to be a little less roll off the tongue, though. Atlanta Motor Speedway is set to become Echo Park Speedway for the next 7 years under the deal announced on Tuesday of this week. Now, Echo Park is a subsidiary of the Sonic Automotive Group that is operated by David Smith. David Smith is the brother of SMI president and CEO Marcus Smith. They're both sons of SMI founder Bruton Smith. Do we see the connection? Of course we do. Now, this means, or meant, changing the signage all around the facility. It'll change in Victory Lane, on the concourse, as you can see on the picture right there on CRN Live on YouTube. The big Atlanta Motor Speedway bit over the media center and all that stuff, that's now become Echo Park Speedway. It also means a different sort of trophy. The winner of the Cup Series race. Keep this in mind. Think about this for a minute. I mean, give this some serious thought for a moment, would you? The winner of the Cup Series race, coming up here in a couple of weeks, will get a nearly new, Echo Park is a used car dealership, think Carvana or CarMax or something like that. Okay. A nearly new Chevy Silverado pickup truck with trailer that is going to be loaded with a limited edition Sturgis Motorcycle Rally limited edition Harley Davidson motorcycle. On the surface, this is a really nice prize. Motorcycle sounds like a really cool thing, right? But if you happen to be, I don't know, we'll just throw a name out there, Denny Hamlin. Or maybe you're Chase Briscoe. Or maybe you're Joey Logano, who drives a Toyota, and a Ford specifically. Mm-hmm. How happy are you to receive a Chevrolet Silverado pickup? New or nearly new, doesn't matter.
I'm sure that could, considering that it's a used car dealer,
yeah,
I'm sure that could probably be adjusted per said manufacturer.
Yeah, the funny thing is that the press release on it, though, didn't state that. It just named the Chevy Silverado.
because Chevrolet is a sponsor of Atlanta.
Yes.
That's why.
It's just, I found it funny. That's all.
Yeah.
Kyle Larson was initially set to do the opposite, really, of what a number of Australian supercar drivers have done, and that was they've come to the U.S., raced in NASCAR. SVG, ring a bell? Larson was set to head down under for the Adelaide Grand Final in November, but he's informed all parties that he's decided not to go ahead with that plan. Larson, who's now 32, was going to be sponsored by Premier and others as he was set to drive for Jason Pride Motorsport down there in that race. And the reason why this race was chosen was because really it's the only race that takes place outside the NASCAR season, so the scheduling allowed him to be able to take the long flight, get down there, get accustomed to the time difference before having to get into the car. He really hasn't said exactly why he chose to back out of this opportunity, but one would have to think that because of everything that happened with the double and then all of the travel involved in doing this, that it might just be a little too much. I mean, Kyle Larson is a racer's racer, and he's going to drive pretty much every chance he gets, but he's got to have some downtime, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, being outside of the schedule time bracket, I'm going to say that's a no excuser right there.
Mm-hmm.
But I could completely, totally get the travel that it would take and the time zone jumps you would be making.
Yeah, I mean, he's effectively heading to the other side of the planet.
That would be a considerable jump.
Yeah.
Considerable jump.
And it doesn't matter whether you're flying commercial or whether you're flying private. Either way, that's a haul.
You would have to fly commercial to Australia because you couldn't, unless you took an absolute jacked up flight pattern route, you would have to fly up the Canadian coast, around Alaska, down below Russia, through to Japan, down to Indonesia, Philippines, and then around.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have a choice.
Yeah.
It is.
And let's face it, I don't care whether it's the most luxurious of planes or just you on a commercial flight in a seat. That is a long time to be in a tube.
If you go from, come on, load up. You go from LA to Melbourne on an A380-800, the king of the skies.
You're spending half a day in flight.
That is a 15-hour and 49-minute flight.
That's not including time change. That's just time in the air.
That's air time, yeah.
And you've done this trip. You've gone from here in the Birmingham area to Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I did this in 2002.
Did it twice.
We flew from Birmingham to Dallas straight to Honolulu. That was an 8-hour hop. At the 5.5-hour mark, I was getting up and walking around the plane. I was starting to go stir crazy, and I still had 2.5 hours to go.
Because I made it on two different jumps from different time areas. I went Birmingham, Houston, Honolulu, a similar pattern to that one. And the second time went from Atlanta, LA, Honolulu, going, but coming back went Honolulu, Seattle, Atlanta.
Yeah. Honolulu to LA is a 5.5?
5 hours.
5.5 hours, give or take.
Uh-oh.
I was able to deal with that, but I was ready to get off the plane when we landed in LA.
Yeah, it was really, really funny because when I'd never been to LA and been taken off from LA. I didn't know LAX was right there on the Pacific Ocean.
Oh yeah.
Didn't know that. And they were taking off what they not consider reverse ops. They were going normal operations where you take off going over the ocean. Take off going west. Plane pitches up. Look, and all I see is Pacific Ocean. I'm going.
Surprise.
My wife says, "We already over the water?" Yep. You can close your window. About 5 more hours. We'll be there. Click.
Yep. All done.
Yep.
One more note in the Cup Series here, where race number 2 for Amazon Prime shows that the total number of viewers were down, but that was the same last year from the Coca-Cola 600 to the very next race the next week. And that was what? That was NBC by then? Had we switched, or were we still late in the Fox run at that point in time?
To which one?
Last year.
To which race?
Coca-Cola 600 in the
Fox.
next race. Still Fox. So, yeah, the numbers dropped last year. They did this year as well. Amazon Prime reporting 2.06 million people watched their stream of the Cracker Barrel 400 at Nashville Superspeedway on average again. And that's also down from last year's race significantly, but that race was on NBC. $3.24 million. What have we always said about network TV versus streaming or versus cable?
Yeah.
Okay. So, take it for what it is.
Ooh, that's not good.
What do you got?
Cup practice. We've got the first engine casualty,
Oops.
and I did not expect it to be a Ford.
Really? Usually Ford brings some really stout stuff because they practically own Michigan over the last decade.
Ryan Blaney.
Oh, wow. That is highly unexpected for a Team Penske
Yep.
engine to let go.
Throw it looked like it probably tagged a valve, if you ask me.
What was the stat that I heard? Of the last 10 races in Michigan, 9 have been won by a Ford?
Yep.
I think about that for a minute.
They go after it.
Yeah, they do. And they get a nice trophy coming out of Michigan for the manufacturer that wins this race. So this being the backyard of Ford and Chevrolet, and Toyota likes to come in and spoil the party if they can. But Ford, they've been good there. I don't know whether this is just for Ford, they're hoping it's a one-off thing. Everybody else is going, yeah, let this be endemic throughout the whole Ford camp.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Two tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back in. A little bit of an update from Michigan there. Cup Series where Ryan Blaney got himself into a bit of trouble there. We talked about it just before the break. What's the update?
The way they showed the camera shot, the way the smoke was, I thought it was an engine let go, but it was actually his left front tire went down going into turn one at 202.
That's never fun. That means they got to do some work to the body there too.
A little bit.
Yeah. All right. I don't know what it is. This year seems to be the year of the penalty or the disqualification. The latest one coming from IndyCar hit Santino Ferrucci and AJ Foyt racing hard. The number 14 Chevy-powered entry of Ferrucci was found to be underweight in post-race inspection. Unlike previous penalties for the same infraction, though, Ferrucci keeps second place, and it's because there's some weird circumstances. I'm going to try and put this in English after we give you IndyCar's rather convoluted explanation. 14 car crossed the finish line in the runner-up position. Statement from IndyCar read that while, quote, the 14 will be allowed to keep the second place finish. However, the entry's been fined $25,000 and will forfeit 25 championship driver and entrant points. The bonus point for leading a lap also not awarded. 14 is also ineligible for engine points and prize money. During post-race inspection of the 14, IndyCar discovered the driver ballast needed to bring the combined weight of the driver and driver ballast up to 185 pounds was underweight and not within the driver ballast weight tolerance of 0 to plus 1 pound. However, this is why he gets to keep second place. Also during inspection, the series found the weight of the car itself, the number 14 car, was 10 pounds over the minimum weight for road and street courses, 1,785 pounds, competed over the minimum weight requirement on track. So they're still going to penalize him because the driver and driver ballast was under 185 pounds. Think about that. This is a grown A man who is less than 185 pounds. Shows you the difference in racers nowadays. But the car itself was 10 pounds overweight. So because the car was technically not underweight, they let the finish stand, but they had to penalize him somehow because he made a rules infraction? Do you have a headache like I do?
This makes no sense.
Yeah. The statement continued. AJ Foyt Enterprises was in violation of Rule 14.4.2, which is driver equivalency weight. 14.4.2.2, driver equivalency weight must bring the combined weight of the driver and ballast to 185 pounds, at least. Rule 14.4.2.5, driver ballast weight tolerance 0 to plus 1 pound. Driver equivalency must be installed and secured in the designed location forward to the seat back. This location may only be used for driver ballast. This rule is in place to equalize the weight of varying size drivers, so there's no advantage based upon the weight of the driver. Post-race weight determination as implemented by IndyCar is a common practice after every event and in nearly all forms of motorsports to ensure an equal playing field. Because they noted this, again, that he kept his second place result because the car itself was over the minimum weight. This is, for IndyCar, this is the Danica Patrick rule. Danica Patrick is small enough to where you can fold her up and put her in your pocket. And weighed, what, 120 at tops?
I would say $130, so $130 at worst.
Yeah. And I'm not even sure she maintained that. So they had to figure out a way to level everything out because she was so, well, I'll just put it politely, petite. And I get that, but wow, this is...
I cannot...
This is taking it to the nth degree. And this has also brought about NASCAR. NASCAR has now said that they're paying much closer attention. They used to just weigh the driver at the beginning of the season and state, okay, now you got to put this much ballast in to make sure that you're at this minimum weight between the driver so that all the cars even out. Now, all of a sudden, they're in a position where they're starting to weigh the drivers 2-3 times a year.
I'm going to need 3 800-milligram ibuprofen.
Good luck with that.
The car is 10 pounds over, but the driver ballast is less than 2 under.
Yeah.
That's an offset gain of 8.
Yeah, you're still 8 pounds over.
What? The car's 8 pounds let's call it off the net gain. The car is 8 pounds heavy. Car's 10 pounds total over. Driver is 2 under, so that's a net of 8. But we're penalizing them because the car...
Because of the driver and the ballast didn't match 185.
but the car's still over. That's what I don't understand.
I know. Yeah. I'm right there with you.
The car is still over.
I'm right there with you.
It'd be totally different if the car was if you accounted for the burn-off weight, if the car was under weight by 2 pounds. I get that. But the net weight of the car minus the driver was 10 pounds over. But the accounting for the driver ballast and driver weight, it was 2 pounds under for that section. Car 10 pounds over, that's a net of 8. But I'll tell you what it is. After Team Penske, overall, for the last 2 years, have literally played with blowtorches around atomic bombs.
Yeah.
Now they've got to get real picky on everything because every single little detail is being watched on every single car. So now they're going to get over picky.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
That's what this is. This is over picky.
That's over picky because driver ballast and weight adds up to being 2 pounds under. Net weight of the car is 10 pounds over. So combine them, that's a net of 8. Net of plus 8.
And I get producer John's opinion and his thoughts about this on CRN Live on YouTube, where he says these are two different rules. And to a certain extent, he's correct. But in the end, you're still dealing with a car that's 8 pounds heavier than probably almost every other car that's on the track.
Yes.
That is a disadvantage.
2 different rules. Yes, absolutely. But when you factor in common sense, the overall net gain is plus 8.
Yeah. And that is a disadvantage.
And car setup thing, yes, but when your car is overweight, that is a disadvantage. I know from experience.
But if Santino Ferrucci was still able to pull a second place finish out of his hat right there, I might be thinking about going maybe 5 pounds overweight if I'm AJ Foyt Racing.
Cut some weight off of it.
He seems to be pretty happy with it. The marriage of Fox and IndyCar seems to be working out for IndyCar well. We talked about it last week. We'll talk about it again this week because the viewership numbers continue to show an increase year over year. Final year of the deal with NBC Sports last year. Numbers for last weekend Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix on Fox, 1.06 million over the course of the race, with a peak of 1.2 tuned in towards the end of the race. Last year, when NBC Sports had the rights to it and they put this on the USA Network, they only were able to pull in on average 608,000 people. So they grabbed 400,000 more people, basically, to watch this race this year over last year. Makes it the second most race in the Detroit Grand Prix since almost 1.4 million people tuned into the second race of a doubleheader weekend, which was back in 2021. We were still in the height of COVID, which meant that we were locked in our houses because we got scared of all the reports. I'll just put it that way.
Got scared of a cold.
When we were looking at the season so far, 7 races in, IndyCar on Fox has seen an average of 2.173 million people tuning in for the racing action. That's a 31% increase from the same point over 2024. 2024, again, a blend of racing shown on NBC and USA, whereas all the races this year, again, are shown on the Fox main network. Let's head back to AJ Foyt Racing with some better news for them. They, of course, team up with ABC Supply every year, at least for the Indy 500. They started working on this together back in 2020 and began to raise money for the Homes for Our Troops cause. Each and every year, the two sides report on their initiative's progress, kind of like the Kyle Petty charity ride. Mm-hmm. This year, the efforts between the two companies raised almost $5 million when ABC Supply and AJ Foyt Racing put in their contributions as well. Homes for Our Troops president and CEO, retired Brigadier General Tom Landwehrmeyer. I want to make sure I get that right because it is an unusual spelling, but it is Landwehrmeyer, said, quote, "We are beyond grateful for ABC's sponsorship and support during the 2025 Indy 500. Their generous $1 million match was instrumental to raising $4.7 million during the month of May. Patriotic livery paint scheme that you can see, by the way, it's a pit stop, but still you can see it pretty well on CRN Live on YouTube. Of the number 14 AJ Foyt Racing Chevy gave us incredible visibility to our mission for building homes and rebuilding lives. Homes for Our Troops, a very worthy cause. So if you're looking for a charitable donation, this would not be the worst thing you could do. Victory Junction Gang Camp would be another one.
Right.
ABC Supply CEO Mike Yost said, quote, "Giving back to the community and honoring our veterans is at the heart of who we are. generosity that we've seen throughout this campaign has been truly inspiring, and we're grateful to everyone who's contributed to make the real difference for our veterans. As for Santino Ferrucci, the driver of the car himself, he said that the number thrilled him. Quote, "It was an honor to drive for Homes for Our Troops in the Indy 500 and extremely rewarding to know that they not only met their goal, but they exceeded it again. Raising over $4 million is incredible. Will help a lot of our severely injured post 9/11 veterans. Those funds are going to go a very long way to building multiple houses for them, helping them financially, and getting their lives back on track." At the end of the day, AJ Foyt Racing had a great Indy 500, and Homes for Our Troops had an amazing one as well. Yeah, that's an understatement.
Yep.
Because AJ Foyt Racing did a fantastic job in the Indy 500 overall. Both cars qualified well, finished well.
They did.
Got to give them a lot of credit.
That they did.
Couple of quick notes here from the Xfinity Series. This year, again, year of the disqualification continues in NASCAR as well. NASCAR ruled against Daniel Dye's number 10 Chevrolet from Cowlick Racing. They said it failed post-race inspection. They didn't give exact details. Have you ever found out exactly what the heck this thing failed on?
Let's see.
I'll let you look on that. They relegated his 9th place finish at Nashville to last in the field, 38th in all. The championship points, 35 that he had scored, got eliminated down to 1. The disqualification also drops him back from 14th to 15th in the series standings. That's a fairly decent points hit.
Failed rear ride height violation.
That'll do it. We've seen that before. Nielsen ratings from last Saturday at Nashville show that this was the first race this year that dropped under 1 million viewers on average throughout the race. The official numbers showed that the Nashville race pulling in 988,000 viewers on average last Saturday. Still good, just under 1 million. And it also marks the most watched Xfinity Series race at Nashville since, there's that year again, 2021. 29% increase over the exact same race aired just last year in 2024. Was Nashville in a different spot on the schedule last year?
Yes.
I thought it was.
It was in late June, I think.
It seemed to me it had moved up. I couldn't remember quite, but I seem to remember us having talked about that when we were doing the scheduling.
Yep.
All right. Let's see here. Let's get into this Max Verstappen, George Russell thing in Formula One, shall we? We noted during the race recap at the beginning of the show that Verstappen and Russell got into each other twice in the final laps of the Spanish Grand Prix. One time, it forced Verstappen to have to go onto an escape road to avoid a bigger crash, but that didn't stop him from going out there and contacting George Russell again. And that time, it prompted race stewards to slap Verstappen with a post-race 10-second penalty, knocked him down to 10th place officially. Was it intentional? Russell thinks so. This goes back to that conversation you and I had earlier between Stenhouse and Hocevar. Was it intentional? Yeah. Russell said after the race, it felt deliberate, to be honest. It is something that I've seen numerous times in sim racing and on iRacing. Never have I seen it in an actual F1 race. So that was something new. It's a bit of a shame because Max is clearly one of the best drivers in the world, but maneuvers like that, just totally unnecessary and sort of lets him down. It's a shame for all the young kids looking to us, aspiring to be Formula One drivers. So as I said, I don't know what he was thinking. In the end, I'm not going to lose sleep over it because I ultimately benefited from those antics. And he did because he wasn't knocked out of the race. Initially in post-race interviews, Verstappen said he wasn't going to talk about his contact with Russell. Later admitted that his battle with the Mercedes went too far, said it was, quote, not right, and, quote, should not have happened, unquote, when he was posting on social media. It was kind of a big turn, truth be told, for the four-time defending champion, who initially had said to reporters after the race, doesn't matter. Kinda, one would think, because, F1 above and beyond all the other series that we cover, and we've heard IndyCar do it, but F1 does investigations seemingly every single race for initiating contact with another driver, as they put it. So does it matter? Yep. Kinda does, Max. Kinda does. You're working on a comment that you're editing on the fly. I can see it.
Yeah, I am. So I'm just going to use the old golden rule. I'm pleading the fifth.
I understand.
I'm pleading the fifth.
All right. Verstappen, again, on social media, tried to explain it further, said this, quote, "We had an exciting strategy and a good race in Barcelona till the safety car came out. Our tire choice to end and some of the moves after the safety car restart fueled my frustration, leading to a move that was not right and shouldn't have happened. I will always give everything out there for the team, and the emotions can run high. You win some together, you lose some together. See you in Montreal."
Read those last four words of that previous sentence. Emotions can run high.
Uh-huh. And then he said,
there you go.
Then he said, "See you in Montreal." And he will. But he's on notice. In addition to the 10-second penalty added to his overall time in the race, Max Verstappen got hit with 3 penalty points added to his F1 super license. That means he's now got 11. Remember, F1 rules state that if you get 12 points on your F1 super license in the course of a year, you have to sit out a race. He's at 11. But this goes to 11. In this case, that's not a good thing. We're not talking spinal tap there, Max.
Mm-hmm.
He's dangerously close, and the points are not slated to fall off of his license until after the Austrian Grand Prix, as the oldest points on his license came due to a crash involving him and Lando Norris and his McLaren during that race last year. So if he can keep his nose clean through the Austrian Grand Prix, he'll have a little bit of breathing room. But because Max Verstappen is aggressive, and because Max Verstappen is the guy holding the banner for Red Bull Racing, because they can't seem to figure out the other driver's situation, they have had to go to some lengths here. And they have gone to the FIA and Formula One asking for a waiver. What do we mean by that? We'll tell you when we get back on CRN.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network.
Well, it's a little early for that.
Yeah.
So we'll just get rid of that here real quick. So here's the situation, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. Welcome back into CRN Live. We appreciate you joining us. Let's talk Michigan here real quick, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
Tires are going down. We talked about Ryan Blaney earlier on this hour. Tyler Reddick now has a problem. Now, these cars, as we talk about, they're going into these corners doing 200 plus.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're having a rash of tires going down, something's up on the setup. And, you know, we've talked about this Gen 7 car a pretty good bit. How much leeway do they have when it comes to doing things like altering camber and stuff?
Well, it used to not be able to, with the locked rear suspension, with a single axle.
Mm-hmm.
But now with it being an independent rear suspension, they can work with the rear camber, rear toe, rear caster, stuff like that. And there's quite a few that appear that they're pushing the issue with rear camber.
Seems like they've gone to an extreme.
It seems like they're pushing it, and I would want a flat contact patch on the rear around that racetrack at all times, because I would not want a rear tire to blow out diving off in a corner at 202, 203.
No. Ask Ryan Blaney.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll keep an eye on that here as we go throughout the rest of this particular version of the show. Now, here's the thing. As a result of all those penalty points, Red Bull has officially petitioned F1 for a super license waiver for Formula 2 driver Arvid Lindblad. Now, this is interesting to me that they don't have, apparently, a reserve driver who has an F1 super license.
That's a problem.
I mean, this is Red Bull.
That's
Usually they're stacked with drivers, and they get rid of them like you would toss out scrap pieces of paper.
Yeah.
But suddenly there's not much left in the cupboard. Now, why do we need a waiver in this case? Because Lindblad checks all the boxes necessary except for one. He's running full-time in Formula 2. He's got enough points to get the F1 super license, but he hasn't been awarded it yet because you got to be 18. Lindblad's 17. And that is a primary requirement. Now, last year, Mercedes had to request for a similar waiver, which they were granted for Kimi Antonelli. But you got to remember, Mercedes was in a different situation. This wasn't because of a penalty situation. This was because before the 2024 season began, Lewis Hamilton had informed them he was leaving them for, we'll just call it redder pastures. And they knew they were going to need a new for 2025 driver. They also knew that Kimi Antonelli was going to be 18 when the 2025 season began. So they asked for a super license waiver so that Kimi Antonelli could test and start to get used to the Mercedes cars, and it was granted. But in this case, they may need a waiver to get this kid to actually get into a race.
I think Red Bull's missing the boat on the driver pick.
Go for it. What do you got?
Because within their ranks, they've got somebody that is of age, personally, that I think is better, that they should give her a shot. Chloe Chambers.
There you go.
She's of age. She's got super license points. She's running in the academy with representing Red Bull, and to my knowledge, been the only Red Bull competitor that I have seen with a Ford logo on it already.
Interesting. Whether they'll pull that trigger or not. Over at Aston Martin, they are definitely going to need to pull in a reserve driver. This could be an interesting one, though. It could be Felipe Drugovich for this next weekend's race in Canada. Lance Stroll, let's go ahead and tell you why. Lance Stroll, who is a Canadian native, is actually going to be forced to miss his home race because he re-injured his wrist last week in Spain. This is the same one that he broke before the 2023 season in a bicycling accident. So he has to have surgery again. The injury happened after qualifying, and according to F1 rules, once a car is qualified, the driver can't be replaced by the reserve driver, so the field for last weekend's Spanish Grand Prix was not 20, it was 19 cars. Plus, on top of the surgery, then there's the recovery time post-surgery for Stroll, so how much time he'll be out, we don't know. But then there's Dragovic's problem. He's not just sitting by waiting for a phone call as the reserve driver for Aston Martin. He's got other racing things going on. For example, he's slated to race with Cadillac in the 24 Hours Le Mans, which happens to be next weekend when they're going to run the Canadian Grand Prix. If Drugovich, who said he is willing to miss Le Mans for the race at Aston Martin, though, is not made available by Cadillac, then Aston Martin says they'll talk to Stoffel Van Dorn, who is their second reserve driver. Formula E, not a problem. Formula E's not racing next weekend, so that's not the scheduling problem. But there is a scheduling problem because one Stoffel Van Dorn happens to be slated to be in the race at Le Mans in the hypercar class for Peugeot. Oops. If he's not available, you're down to your third-ranked reserve driver, his name, Jack Crawford. But there's a problem there, too. I know, we're all shocked, right? Seems his F1 Super license status is not confirmed.
Well, since we're applying for waivers for him, I do have a passport, not very far from Canada. So I'll go take a stab at it.
Sure, why not? Oh, man. All right, let's get back to Cadillac, shall we? The Cadillac Formula One entry that is set to join the grid next year still hasn't named their drivers. It is intriguing, by the way, to a couple of different drivers, Valtteri Bottas being one of them. See where Cadillac ends up going. But they continue to play up their American founding, really kind of much more than Haas F1 really seems to ever have in their decade on the grid. For example, Cadillac has signed their first big partnership. It's with the American-based apparel maker Tommy Hilfiger. Based out of Michigan, Hilfiger is now the Cadillac apparel partner and lifestyle sponsor in what is being only termed as a multi-year deal. This continues the connection between Tommy Hilfiger and Formula One racing. This goes back many years. The apparel maker released a statement that read in part, quote, "Two icons, one vision, a bold new era in American motorsport. We're proud to continue our Formula One story alongside TWG Motorsports and Cadillac. We share a vision to honor the heritage of F1 while pushing it forward, celebrating where we're from, and reimagining where we can go. As the sport's presence continues to soar, there's never been a better time to dream big and show the world what an American team can bring to the grid." And I said that this goes back a long ways. Hilfiger's been a long time fixture within Formula One. They first sponsored an F1 team back in 1990. Actually kind of got back into the series back in the 1970s. Tommy Hilfiger himself, when Formula One used to race way back in the 70s at Watkins Glen International, which was right near his home where he grew up, he would attend the races. And then he founded his company, and then in 1990 started to sponsor teams. Most recently, he was with Mercedes, but then Adidas took over that role for this season. So Hilfiger was on the outside looking in, and that opened him up to joining Cadillac. The company's going to work up the official team outerwear and the fanwear that'll be available beginning next March. The company logo is going to be on fire suits, helmets, and, of course, the race cars, too. Going to be highly involved in that. That's a pretty big get when you think about how involved Hilfiger's been in Formula One. That's a pretty big get. Formula One continues to show year-over-year viewership increases as well on ABC ESPN. Just last week, the Spanish Grand Prix board numbers that kind of bear that out. The ratings show that the average 1.2 million people last Sunday morning U.S. time. That's the Spanish Grand Prix's largest ever U.S. audience. Numbers showing that of the 9 races run so far this year, all but one, which was surprisingly the Miami Grand Prix, have actually seen year-over-year increases in viewership. 4 of those 9 races, including the season-opening Australian Grand Prix, the race in China, the Memorial Day weekend race at Monaco, that was on ABC, and as we just noted, Spain, all attained record viewership numbers for those races since ESPN has been carrying Formula One. And in fact, as we've noted all along, grabbed the third largest U.S. audience for any F1 race, the Monaco Grand Prix did, For the season so far, ABC ESPN numbers are showing an average of 1.3 million viewers. That's up 4% over last year. So across the board, NASCAR's Cup Series, NASCAR's Xfinity Series, IndyCar, and F1, they're all showing an increase in viewership.
Right.
It's good news,
Which that's not a bad thing at all.
No, that's actually very, very good news. Corey LaJoy. There's a lot of stuff that we could say about Corey LaJoy. I love his energy. I do. It's like looking at Clint Boyer on Fox. I love the energy. Sometimes you look at it and go, what did you just say? You have an example of that.
I will. You go first.
Okay. So while he gets that, Corey LaJoy is set to get back into a car or a truck specifically. Yeah, he's sitting in with Carl Edwards and Danielle Trotta on the Amazon Prime pre-race and post-race shows, but he's not done racing. He's set to get back into the Craftsman Truck Series. That'll be later today at Michigan. He'll drive for Spire Motorsports. He'll drive the 07 Chevrolet Silverado. And really, this is just kind of a warm-up for him because he'll actually get into a slate of races. After Michigan, he'll take a couple of races off, be back for this fall's Richmond race, and from Richmond, he'll take the seat the remainder of the 2025 year. Now, no word on all of his sponsors. We know that if you're looking on CRN Live on YouTube right now, Gamebridge at least has today's race in Michigan. I would imagine they'll probably take the vast majority of the rest of them as well. LaJoy earlier this week, I have to point that out, said of the opportunity, quote, I've put a lot of work in the early days to help shape my Spire Motorsports. Still have some friends that have been on there since day one, so it's going to be good to see them. The number 07 team has been bringing some fast trucks to the track this year, and we're looking for a spot in the owners' playoffs, so it'll be nice to have some consistency with the team to get acclimated to these vehicles, chase some wins, and hopefully a Craftsman Truck Series owners title. And then he says something that, well, might be a backhanded compliment at best.
I don't even know if it's that.
I'm not even sure it's a compliment.
But he says in media availability, in the media center, in front of a lot of people with a lot of mics and a lot of videos going.
Yeah. So it's not like he can be claiming that's not what he said. You've got a bunch of people that prove it.
Yeah, buddy. Of what it felt like going back to Spire after being dropped from the Cup team last year. Quote, it's like when you've worked building a house for 5 years and then your wife becomes a TikTok star and she's not happy anymore and she kicks you out. And then she calls you back a year later and you have to go live in the guest room and she's there with her new boyfriend. That's how this thing goes. Unquote. Huh?
And it led me to ask the question automatically. So why did you take the ride? And I get it. He's a driver. He wants a ride.
Because he's now second guessing about making that backhanded comment about driving trucks when he had the seat that Daniel Hemrick now is driving. I'd rather drive on Sunday and run 25th and run up front of trucks. Well, guess what? Daniel Hemrick's already done in that truck this year. That would be win a race and competing up front.
Yeah.
So you got to go.
So here's the thing, Corey.
Sorry, Jeff. I didn't mean to say that. Can I drive the truck, please?
Yeah. Spire has given you a lifeline. And if you really want to get back to full-time racing in the top levels of NASCAR, I don't care which division it is, take this as that opportunity. You have an opening here. Use it. Take it. But don't go so whacked out over the top. You've got several races to prove your point. Use them.
Should.
You don't have just one race that you feel like you got to get up front. You got several races. Use them. Carl Long and his MBM Motorsports crew set to go racing in the Craftsman Truck Series. They've grabbed a young driver by the name of Tyler Tomasi to drive their Ford F-150 in the Miller Tech Battery 200 at Pocono, June 23rd. Tomasi hails from the Providence, Rhode Island area. He's all of 22. Does have a lot of late model experience. MBM, of course, not unfamiliar with the Craftsman Truck Series. They got a top 10 at Pocono in 2020 with driver Timmy Hill. claiming an 8th place finish there. The truck eventually is set to be turned over to Derek White, says Carl Long. Said this, quote, "This chassis is a truck that we're preparing for Derek White. Tyler will get to pilot it first as we get Derek's NASCAR approval process moving along." What? He hasn't been approved for a license yet? That what I'm reading? Well, you look that up. Tomasi's sponsor and truck number going to be announced at a later date, Long said. White has raced in the Truck Series at Daytona, Talladega, and other larger tracks in his time in NASCAR, but he's been out of it since 2016, so now he's in a position where he's got to regain his clearance?
Oh, God, here we go again.
Pocono measures to 2.5. He hasn't got clearance to run on a track right now at 1.5 miles or longer. This man has run at Daytona and Talladega. I don't care if it's been since 2016, people.
But we can clear IndyCar drivers that have never driven a stock car.
Yeah, whatever. Sports Business Journal says there's a rumor that YouTube star and part-time NASCAR racer Cletus McFarland might be working with Ram Trucks to put on a full-time Truck Series entry on the track in 2016, should Stellantis give the green light to go racing. Now, McFarland, whose real name is Garrett Mitchell, grabbed some attention by NASCAR fans with his wild videos. He's shown some affinity behind the wheel. He was at Talladega earlier this year in the ARCA Menard Series. In fact, he's got 3 starts in ARCA this year, including at Daytona and Talladega. As we've been reporting, Stellantis has been mulling over returning the Ram and the Dodge brands to NASCAR racing after they bowed out in 2012 with Dodge. Ram's last year officially was 2016. Talks between Stellantis and NASCAR are ongoing. As for McFarland, you might see this on CRN Live on YouTube through his official social media account, said that the rumor itself is not true.
There is an announcement from Ram at Michigan tomorrow morning.
So maybe, but for the record, any reported racing accounts on social media that put up a picture of a purported 2026 Craftsman Truck Series entry looks a little AI to me. So be careful with that. Nothing's confirmed. Let me repeat that now. Nothing is confirmed. And from the world of the NHRA, Julie Nataas has her both Top Fuel and Funny Car licenses. She's going to put the Funny Car license into use this weekend in the Thunder Valley Nationals. She's going to run with DC Motorsports in their Toyota Super Dragster with sponsor Airmine. So congratulations to her. Hopefully that leads to bigger and bigger things. You enjoy the racing this weekend. We will enjoy the racing this weekend. We'll talk to you on Crossed Flags. Hopefully we'll be back to Tuesday. Talk to you then. See ya.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.